Well, hello and welcome to Curlis Mania. We've got another awesome episode lined up for you guys. And I'd like to, first of all, before we do anything more, I'd like to welcome back to my channel, Mr. Davey Cretin.
Thank you for having me again, Tom.
How are
Pleasure to be here.
how are you today? You good?
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to get even better now because we're going to talk about some American prog, right? So, and it seems to be a theme with us because last time we talked about Styx.
Hmm.
Now we're talking about the mighty Kansas.
Yes.
So it's all like kind of an American prog theme with Davey for some reason. But we just, we're talking about Styx. Of course, Kansas came up, right? So we were like, hey, Kansas. And it just naturally went to, okay, Kansas is going to be our next episode. So it just happened, by chance, and it's all good. So because we're going to talk about two pretty awesome records. Leftoverture from 1976 and Point of No Return from 1977. So, man, I mean, come on. These are both awesome. As usual with these battles, I try to pick two really, really good records, and it's hard to pick, right? So, and this one is the no exception. This is difficult. I don't know how much difficulty you had, Davey, in this one, but we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out, right? Um, so anyway, let's do a quick, as I do on these battles, I try to do a little quick history, little background leading up to the first record we're going to talk about. And Davey, feel free to jump in. So uh,
Okay.
essentially, this band, from what I understand, this band was discovered by this guy named Wally Gold, who worked with Don Kirshner in New York City, and they had sent in a tape. Kansas had sent in a tape, and there's a million tapes on the desk, and somehow this guy found this tape, and he really loved the band, and he loved the violin, and he loved the complexity. He was into it, and he wanted to come see them, and they rented out some theater or something in Kansas somewhere, and he came to see them. And they advertised free beer. That was like how they got people into the gig. And
Right.
it ended up being kind of packed, and he showed up, and obviously he was impressed, and he signed them. And Don Kirshner, I was like, how do I know Don Kirshner? Don Kirshner. I'm like, Monkeys. He did the Monkeys, right? So it's like, that's all you think about with Don Kirshner for me. Um,
I think of Don Kirshner's rock concert,
oh, that's true.
the
Good point.
syndicated show that aired like Saturday night, maybe after Saturday Night Live back in the 70s, or late Friday night after Carson.
That's right. That's right. Of
But
course. Of course. How
and
could
in,
I forget?
in fact, Kansas has a great performance on there. Any fan who hasn't seen it, they do stuff from the previous album before Leftoverture, from the Mask record. They do the Pinnacle and a couple of other songs. It's amazing. Anyone should go check that out on YouTube after you're done with this video.
And after you like it. Yeah, so no, that's awesome. No, it's really, believe me, and there's nothing, but I never saw Kansas live, but I've just heard, especially in their prime, they said that Kansas live was a thing to behold because they were just so tight. And just like, I mean, these guys rehearsed probably every day, all day. I don't know, but they were tight. Um, but anyway, they released their debut album in 1974. And they toured incessantly, and they put out two records in 1975, A Song for America and Mask, as Davey just mentioned. And so two albums in one year, and they were touring as well. And they opened, from what I understand, they opened for Queen at one point. So they were getting exposure, but they were, opening up for bigger bands.
And they played with Journey, they played with Styx.
Hmm. Yes, because we mentioned in the Styx video that Tommy Shaw was inspired by Kansas, seeing them live.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've heard two different, I think Brian May also was impressed. So a lot of people would see them live and go, wow, these guys are impressive. I really wish I could have seen them in their prime live. So that brings us to album number four, where they went to Louisiana apparently to record. I think that's, if I got that right. Where
Yep.
they said that they were like mosquitoes the size of your hand, and you'd walk out and it was like the bayou, like alligators at the front door and stuff. But they said it was great for recording because they were in the middle of nowhere, right? So there's nothing else to do but record. So um And so anyway, and from what I understand, Leftoverture, this is again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It had something to do with leftover songs, like Leftoverture was like Carrie Livgren had all these songs from leftover from previous sessions or something, and that's how most of the album was like. I don't know, something like that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
It's partially that.
something like that. Because Carrie Livgren kind of I mean, he dominates the writing at least on Leftoverture. It doesn't, there's guys throw in stuff, but it seems like Carrie's really the guy on that record. So, but anyway, that's enough of that. So enough history. Let's dive into Leftoverture at this point. So, Davey, I'm going to throw it your way. Have at it.
Okay, thank you. Leftoverture, the fourth Kansas album, came out October 1976. It was recorded earlier in the year over the summer in the Louisiana Bayou, as you said. And they also said armadillos were walking into the studio. It
Yes.
was just in the middle of nowhere by the swamp. So it was an unusual place to record. The album hit number 5 in America, so it was their big breakthrough. Hit number 2 in Canada, so it even did better in Canada.
Wow.
It went 4, maybe 5 times platinum. I have conflicting stories about that. So it's either quadruple or quintuple platinum in America, and it went platinum in Canada. It's about 44 minutes long with 8 songs, so the songs are rather lengthy. Most of them are between 5 and 8 plus minutes. And the band consists of the aforementioned Steve Walsh on lead and backing vocals and various keyboards. Kerry Livgren, the main songwriter, on guitars, all kinds of keyboards and synths. Robbie Steinhardt on violin, viola, and lead and backing vocals. Rich Williams on electric and acoustic guitars. And the underrated rhythm section, I want to give props to them. Dave Hope on bass and Phil Ehart on drums and percussion. And these guys are very underrated. If you listen, you could hear and see. Well, I've seen Kansas live from like 1992 up. I've seen them a bunch of times. And Ehart always brings it live. And I just love watching him when I see the band perform. I usually focus in on him because he has such great fills and interesting hits and his rhythms. I just think he's a very underrated drummer. And Dave Hope plays some really nice, tasty stuff, especially on the 70s albums.
Yeah, that rhythm section is like you build on the foundation, right? And it's like that
Yep.
foundation is so solid.
I
Yeah.
mean, I like the rhythm section in Styx, but I think these guys are better. I would say
Yeah.
the Kansas rhythm section is better.
Hmm.
And both of them, they did tastier stuff and more melodic, interesting stuff, ear candy in the 70s as composed to their later output.
Right. Right.
It
Exactly.
seemed to focus on the singers and the songwriters later on, and not as much as the band, because
Right.
they were more, both bands were more progressive in the 70s.
Yep.
So about this album, I've done a couple of shows on Kansas on YouTube, and I keep forgetting to say these 2 specific things about Carry On Wayward Son. First of all, it's gotten a whole new life from the TV show Supernatural. That show was on for 15 seasons, which is a long run in TV. It was on from 2005 to 2020. They had 327 episodes of Supernatural, and Carry On Wayward Son always closed every season. They played the song during the season finale 15 times. The only season that it was played in, that it wasn't played in the last episode, was the first season. They played it in the next to last episode, the penultimate episode.
Nice.
So it got a second life through TV. A lot of bands get second lives through commercials, TikTok. What's the other one I was thinking? Rock Band, the video game.
Yep. That's
But
right. Yep.
I mean, they've gotten a whole new life from a TV show.
Yeah.
And another thing, as I mentioned before, Kansas and Journey were label mates, and they toured together in the 70s. The second Journey album, called Look Into the Future, it has a song written by Neil Schon, Greg Raleigh, and their former guitar player, who was still writing songs but wasn't in the band at that point, George Tickner. It's the last song on the second album, called I'm Gonna Leave You. And the whole intro and the main riff, I think Kerry Livgren, I don't know, consciously or subconsciously, he lifted it. And if anyone plays that Journey song, I'm Gonna Leave You, sounds just like the main riff in Carry On Wayward Son.
Oh, does it? Yeah.
Bow now. And then it deviates. But
Okay.
you hear it and it's like, that sounds just like Kansas. That's because I think Kerry either got it subconsciously or this was the last song that they put on the record, Carry On Wayward Son. He
Right.
brought it into the band because they were a big democracy. 6 guys in the band. So Kerry or Steve or whomever would bring songs in, and the band would either say yes or no. And he brought this in at the last minute, and they added it. The guys loved it. They said, "Oh, it's a great song. Let's add it to the record." And it became their biggest song, arguably this or Dust in the Wind from the album we'll talk about next. But Carry On Wayward Son is very reminiscent of Journey's I'm Gonna Leave You. And this is before Steve Perry was in the band. So it's way before Journey struck it big. Kansas hit it big first by
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Rolly's still singing, yeah.
But it's a vocal track because I know if anyone knows the early Journey, it's way more progressive rock, and there's a lot of fusion thrown in. And the playing on those first 3 records is fire.
Yeah, it's really
The
fusion.
Joan is off the charts, way underrated. But getting back to Kansas, so I neglected to say these 2 things in the other shows I did: the Carry On Wayward Son, Second Life Through Supernatural, and it's very reminiscent of Journey's I'm Gonna Leave You.
Cool.
So this is the biggest song. Pardon me?
I said very cool. I love that. Those are great little tidbits, man.
So I just wanted to mention that. Now, besides Carry On Wayward Son, which reached number 11 in the US charts and number 5 in the Canadian charts, it came out in late 76, about a month after the album, as a single, and it was certified gold in 1990, a gold single. And then in 2019, it was certified quadruple platinum in single sales. So they're definitely their biggest song. It was followed up in May of 77 by another album track as a single, What's on My Mind. Did not chart in America, but it made it to number 89 on the Canadian charts. Now, this record is phenomenal. There's not a bad track. And I think from start to finish, it's a perfect record. It's amazing. Besides Carry On Wayward Son, everyone knows. I know a lot of people call it Carry On My Wayward Son, but technically it's called Carry On Wayward Son. Huge song. The last song, Magnum Opus, is an 8.5-minute instrumental. Basically, there's a little bit of a vocal part. But I always thought there was a big similarity between Magnum Opus by Kansas and Rush, La Via Strangiato.
Oh,
because
man.
they're both lengthy 8-minute plus instrumentals. The cover art, by the way, is great too. And the back cover.
Yeah, the back cover. I love the back cover. So great. It's like
cover art
scroll that's going into space or something. Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So Magnum Opus is an amazing, mainly instrumental track. 2 of my other favorite songs on the record: Cheyenne Anthem, written by Kerry Livgren. And by the way, Kerry Livgren wrote the bulk of this album because Steve Walsh had writer's block. So that's why Livgren wrote the bulk of the songs. He had a hand in every song, and Walsh only has a hand in 3 songs. And later on, a few years later, they would sort of battle for supremacy and dominance in the band, who had more songs. Yeah. They had to have the same amount of songs. It was a whole deal coming up a few years after they got their success. And they had the voices in their head. You're the best. You should have a solo career. You should have more songs on the record, yada, yada, yada.
Whispering in the ear. Yep. Totally.
And then when you put that with money, drugs and alcohol, ego, things just spiral out of control. And that's what leads to bands breaking up, unfortunately.
Always the same story. It's the same
exactly.
Story. Yep.
Over and over.
Yeah.
So Cheyenne Anthem, written by Livgren, I think is a highlight of the record. It's almost 7 minutes long, and it's so Prog with a capital P.
Yeah, so good. I love that track. Yep.
And one of the other songs I just want to mention, Miracles Out of Nowhere, 6.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And just the way that this is a band that has 2 lead singers, basically. Although Steve Walsh sings the bulk of the songs, Robbie Steinhardt also has a good but very different voice. Mm-hmm. Now, Walsh's voice is unique. It's one of the best voices, I think, in classic rock. or it was unfortunately before he blew it out because they toured so much and he had done stuff and he just lost his voice later on.
Oh,
But
did
when
he?
I started,
Yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
lost his voice, but he just couldn't hit those great
Damn.
notes anymore.
Yeah.
Didn't have the clarity that he
Yeah.
had in the 70s.
Yeah. Yep.
By the late 80s, you can notice it on In the Spirit of Things, which I think is an underrated Kansas album.
Yeah.
But that's when you start noticing it really in the 90s and the 2000s. That's why he eventually retired
Okay. Gotcha.
from the business and left the band, and they got the new singer. Getting back to this album, Miracles Out of Nowhere is a great song because the guys switch off vocals, they sing in tandem, and on the chorus of Miracles Out of Nowhere, when they're both singing, it's always here, it's always there. And then Steve Walsh takes over and just takes it to the stratosphere.
It's just love miracles out of nowhere. Yeah.
The way he does that,
I
he
wish I
just
could sing that like that. It's just insane.
just an amazing voice that he has. And
Yeah.
I think that's the high, for me, that's the highlight of the album, Miracles Out of Nowhere. I
So
just love
good.
that song.
So good. Yeah. It's really amazing.
I mean, the other songs are really good too. The Wall, I can't not mention The Wall. Just the
No.
lyrics and the imagery that Livgren and Walsh brought to the song, and just the power and the majesty of it. And it's just such a positive song that you could overcome anything if you put your mind to it, is basically what the lyrics are saying. There's a wall before you, but you can get over it if you just have trust and faith in yourself and your own ability. So I
Yeah.
love The Wall.
Yeah.
And the shorter songs are really good too. Opus Insert, What's on My Mind, and Questions of My Childhood. And I really like, I think it's Opus Insert, the way it ends with who is it? It's Walsh on the piano and it's Livgren on like the synthesizer. And there's this cool little dual thing, and then the song fades out. I think that's the end of Opus Insert. Yeah, it is. It's the end of Opus Insert.
Yep.
Right. It goes into Questions of My Childhood. So I think this is a stellar album. And it was produced, I almost forgot to say, by Jeff Glixman and the band. And Jeff Glixman on their earlier records was sort of the seventh member of the band, and he brought a lot of oomph to the production and just made them sound pristine. These are amazing sounding records.
Yeah.
Maybe
Absolutely.
not as good as Steely Dan, but they sound incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's basically everything I have to say about it. It's an amazing album. If you don't know it and you love prog, you should go out and listen to it.
No, absolutely. Considering how many instruments we have, I mean, it's got to be a difficult task to produce this band. And from what I understand, Jeff Glixman was a bandmate from a previous incarnation or something like that.
You
Uh,
might be right.
yeah, from way back, so they knew him from way back. But he became, like you said, he became like the seventh member, and he produced both of these records. So I mean, he knew what he was doing. Um, and he was also a cheerleader. I mean, if you see interviews with him, he just was amazed by this band. He just thought they were so great. And apparently when they finished Carry On Wayward Son, that was I'd heard that Steve and Carrie both got emotional because it was like, this is so good. Like, this is all these years of work. This is like they knew they had something when they
They
heard.
knew they had a hit on their
They knew they
hands.
had it. They're like, and it's, what's funny is that Carry On, you listen to that song. I mean, I've heard it a million times, and it's one of those tracks that, like, it still hits me. I mean, it's that good that even if I've heard it a million times, you listen to it and you go, still really impressive. Just like, wow. It's such a cool, the thing about Kansas that strikes me when I was listening to these records for this episode, I was getting ready for it. And it's just like, they're such like you kind of touched on it, they're an amazing ensemble. It's like, it's not just like one guy, it's like all of them. And like you said, Phil and Dave Hope, I mean, they're just killing it. And just super tight rhythm section. Everybody is just on it. And when they do these really kind of complex just stops and starts, and it just the arrangements are complex, but they're not missing a beat. They're on it. And it's just, that's the thing that just impressed me the most about this band. And I mean, side one of Leftoverture is just fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. It's amazing, right? It's like uh the Wall, we went through. I love What's on My Mind too. I love that. I'm only saying what's on my mind. I just love that. It's kind
So
of heavy.
catchy.
It's sort of heavy for them.
And
Uh,
it's catchy. It's a catchy,
and
upbeat song.
yeah, and I love it. What is it? I mean, how it ends, you're
Where
like,
it ends,
ah,
yep.
so tight, so amazing. Um, and then Miracles Out of Nowhere, of course, we talked about. It's just and Steve Walsh is just on. It's like top form. His vocals throughout this whole album are just incredible. Just incredible. He's a great singer. Um, and
Could I interrupt for 1 second? I
go
forgot
ahead.
to say
Yeah,
one
sure,
thing.
sure.
There is a documentary that they did about maybe 10 years ago, and it's called Miracles Out of Nowhere. And
Hmm.
it's a DVD, Blu-ray, CD set. And the whole thing is when they were initially putting the band together. I think there were two bands. There was White Clover, and I can't think of the name of the other band right now. And they merged to form Kansas. And Phil Ehart, who's the band's manager now, besides being the drummer, although he has some health issues, and we want to wish him well, and we hope Phil Ehart gets better and comes back to playing drums with the band.
Absolutely.
But getting back to my point, the whole thing with Phil Ehart said when they were putting the band together, he wanted to hear Steve Walsh sing Kerry Livgren's songs, and he says that in the documentary. So
Hmm.
the band got together, and that's basically what it is. It's these amazingly written songs sung by great singers, besides Walsh, Robbie Steinhardt too.
Hmm.
And I would say that Kerry Livgren is the best American progressive songwriter. The
Hmm.
only one that I think comes close to him is Neil Morse, formerly of Spock's Beard, Transatlantic, Neil Morse Band, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Those are the two guys in American Prog who write the best melody lines and the best songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a combination of it's the songs and the singers. And like you said, you brought up a great point, a very salient point, the ensemble playing and the way they all play together for the benefit of the song with no one man, one guy just leading it. It's the way they mix everything together. And it's on the ensemble playing. You said it perfectly.
Yeah, they're a true band. They're a true band in the sense of the word, you know.
Yes.
You take one guy out and it's not going to be the same, you know, and that's kind of what happened in the 80s.
Later on.
You
Yes,
noticed it.
exactly.
Um, but you know, like you said, Opus Insert is like what I forgot how great I love that song. So it starts off the second side, you're like, oh yeah, I love this. And Questions from My Childhood, you know, it's like a piano-led poppy kind of song, but it's great. With flourishes, obviously, of course, with Kansas, right? But it's really good. I mean, this album is just, yeah, it's fantastic. We don't have to keep going through it. It's just saying how great it is. It's amazing. I love it. I love it to death. I really don't have any qualms with it. I mean, I would say the only slight criticism I'll say is that Magnum Opus kind of it goes on for a while and it kind of like, you know, it's great, but it kind of just loses me a little bit at the end. Like it's kind of like, okay, it kind of goes on for a while, but I mean, but it's a quibble. It's not a criticism. It's just like a little bit like, okay, maybe they could have made that a little shorter, but other than that, that's all I gotta say. I mean, it's very tiny negative comment. Everything else is amazing.
Well, it was a long album for the time. In 1976, most bands, except Genesis, had 30 to 35-minute records, and this is almost 45 minutes, this album.
Yeah,
So they packed a lot,
yeah,
and it's 8 songs. So they
right.
packed a lot of music into one album.
Yeah, and I gotta say, most people would probably say like, well, I don't care, man. I love Magnum Opus, dude. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm probably you know,
You
uh
might be in the
might
minority.
be in the minority there. So okay, cool. Well, that's Leftoverture. Let's move it right along to the next record, Point of No Return from
Their fifth,
1977.
yep, their fifth studio album came out in October of that year, reached number 4 in the American charts, number 7 in the Canadian charts. It went 4 times platinum in America and platinum in Canada. And this is 44 and a half minutes long. Once again, as you said, produced by Jeff Glicksman. And this has 10 songs as opposed to 8 songs on the previous record. Great, once again, great album cover, and
Love
even the
the art.
back cover
Yeah,
is
yeah,
excellent. And
love
just
it.
the artwork on the inner sleeve too.
I know. And it's like, I gotta show you. I was really bummed when I bought this. All I got was this. I
Oh,
don't have, I
plain
know, because I
sleeve.
know I know the inner sleeve is really cool too. Doesn't it have like it looks like it's a ship and it's got all this, yeah, it's really cool.
And the parchment inside.
Yeah, I gotta find another copy and get that. Anyway, side note. So continue.
So
Go ahead.
it's got 10 songs, and most of the songs are shorter. There are only 2 songs over the 6 minute mark. Everything else is under 5 minutes. And it's the same 6 guys. They released 3 singles from this record. Point of No Return came out in October 77, the same month the record came out. Reached number 28 in America. And all these are from the Billboard charts. When I say the chart positions, it's from the American Billboard charts, not Cashbox. I always like to go by Billboard. It's just the way I've been doing it for decades.
Sure, sure.
28 in America, 13 in Canada. Dust in the Wind came out January 78, went to number 6 in America, number 3 in Canada. And the third single, Portrait He Knew, came out in May 78, which is a song all about Albert Einstein. And it went to number 64 in America, number 62 in Canada. Now, in 2013, BMI gave Kansas an award for over 2 million plays of Point of No Return. And that's over a decade now, so it's way higher now. And then Dust in the Wind was certified by the RIAA triple platinum as a single in November of 2019. So another huge song for Kansas.
Yeah.
Now, this album, the 10 tracks, it starts out with Point of No Return, written by Walsh E. Hart, the drummer, and Steinhardt, the violin player. And it's basically one of the only 2 songs on the record that Kerry Livgren doesn't have his hand in. And this is a good, powerful, upbeat, melodic rocker. And just Walsh's voice on that middle section, your mother and brother, that whole part, just he soars on
Loves you.
that. Yeah, only Walsh could do
I
that
can't do it, man. I just want to try, but
because his voice was phenomenal back then.
Unbelievable.
Then you get another crisp rocker, Paradox, written by Livgren and Walsh. And then you get a very cool short instrumental, The Spider, written by Steve Walsh, which is organ led, and it bleeds right into Portrait He Knew, the song about Albert Einstein. And that's written by Livgren and Walsh, and that's a really good underrated album track. It was a single, but it wasn't a big single. And then the side ends with my favorite song probably on the record, Closet Chronicles, which is 6.5 minutes, and it's epic. And just the lyrics, it's about Howard Hughes, or it was inspired by Howard Hughes.
All right. All right.
And that is a great composition by Walsh and Livgren. Then on side 2, I have some slight quibbles here.
Okay.
And don't shoot me, I'm only the piano player, as Elton John once said. But Lightning's Hand and Sparks of the Tempest, they're good. They're good album tracks. They're just not great album tracks. They both rock, great vocals, great playing. They're really good songs. They're just not upper echelon Kansas songs to me. That's just the way I feel about them. Dust in the Wind is a classic song. It was a guitar finger picking exercise that Livgren was doing. And his wife, Vicky, said to him, "Hey, that's really good. You should make a song out of that." He said, "Well, just the finger picking exercise. I'm just practicing my acoustic guitar playing." And she said, "No, I think that's really good. You should write some lyrics and make that a song." And he was nervous bringing it to the band because it was so different from anything that the band had done. And the guy said, "We love that. That's great. Let's do it." He was surprised. And it's become this, I would say, second biggest song, first biggest song. It's between that and Carry On Wayward Son. They're both just, that's Kansas. People who don't really know a lot about rock and roll, they know Kansas, Dust in the Wind. They know Carry On, Wayward Son, and most of them probably know Point of No Return as well.
Yeah.
Those are their three big tunes. Like with Lures, The Cult, everyone knows Don't Fear the Reaper. They know Burning for You, and they know Godzilla.
Well,
Those are
yeah.
their three great songs,
Right.
three well-known songs
Really
by
well known. The,
the
the the the
mainstream
man in the
people.
street. That's what the man in the street knows. Those three songs.
Exactly. And then the album ends in fine fashion, I would say. I love the last two tracks. Nobody's Home and Hopelessly Human are both underrated album tracks. They are great.
Mm-hmm.
And they're upper echelon Kansas songs to me. They're top tier tunes,
Yeah.
is the way I view those songs. And I love those songs. So the album starts really good, the whole first side and most of the second side. It's just that I think Lightning's Hand and Sparks of the Tempest, and I know a lot of Kansas fans are not going to be happy with me saying that, but they just bring this album down a little bit.
I could not agree more. That I swear to God, I made notes that have the same exact
And
comment.
we did not talk about
I
this.
swear we did not talk. We did not talk
Nope.
beforehand. And I had the same notes that Lightning's Hand is not a great side two opener for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. I can't really put my finger on it. It just doesn't, I don't know. It's okay. Like you said, it's not horrible. It's just not very, it's not like it's not as high level as the first side, if you ask me. And then Sparks of the Tempest, something about the way the instrumentation, or I don't know, it's kind of light, and it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't, yeah, I'm with you. I don't know why those two tracks stood out to me as well as kind of not A tier for some reason. I wish I could describe better as to why, but I think that like Lightning's Hand, for example, I don't know who sings that, but it's not Steve.
Right. It's Robbie Steinhardt.
Robbie. Yeah, but Robbie just, I think Steve would have done that better. For I don't know why. I like Robbie's voice. I do like Robbie singing, but that for that song for some reason it doesn't seem to fit him. But I don't know. That's just my
And the funny thing is, Walsh co-wrote it, and Walsh's name is first. It's a
right,
Walsh Livgren composition, and
right.
he gave it to Robbie.
Gave it to Robbie to sing. So and it's kind of strange. I just remember thinking like, why isn't Steve singing this song? Because it seems like a Steve song to me. Anyway, but it's like I always talk about, because Steve is in his prime, right? He's like one of the best vocalists like in rock. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And like, it's like a cheap trick when Tom Peterson sings a song. And I guess the Jack Douglas was saying something like, dude, you got Robin Zander in the band. Why are you singing? Like, you got one of the best rock singers ever of your band, and you're singing a song.
Yep.
But anyway, that's just like you said, those are the two songs that stick out as not, but everything else, I mean, side one is, as you said, unbelievable. Side one is great. There's not a bad moment on side one. I love Portrait. I think Portrait is great. Do you knew what to do. Like, I just love that. I love that hook. And then the Spider, I mean, like you said, I can't believe that's a Walsh. I mean, it's an awesome instrumental.
Great organ in it.
Oh
Great
my
organ
God, it's
playing by
awesome.
Walsh.
God. Yeah, Paradox. I love Paradox. Oh my God, that's a great track. And Closet
Mhm.
Chronicles. I mean, like you said, there's not a bad moment on side one. It's fantastic. It's awesome. It's a real classic. Um, and Lightning. So yeah, so Dust in the Wind. Of course, we've heard that a million times, but I still love it. And then I'm just repeating a lot of what you said, but Nobody's Home and Helplessly Human are a good way to end the record. Great way to end the album. So again, another very strong record. And the complaints that we have once again are kind of quibbles. They're not massive complaints. They're just kind of like,
Yeah.
that song could have been better. That song's not A tier. That's all, really, in my view.
Yes.
So,
And these are their two biggest selling records of all time. This is the apex of their career.
right, right,
I mean, they
absolutely.
still make new studio records with their new vocalist. They made two very good records. The new one I like better than the previous one. And hopefully they'll come out with a third one soon. So they're still out there making music. But
Yeah,
this was the commercial, I should say the commercial highlight, the commercial part of their career from like 76 to 79. Because the great live record came out after this, Two for the Show, which is
yes,
very good. And you could hear Walsh just go off to the stratosphere on that album too.
yeah. I think they were pretty tired after this album because they think about it. You look at their schedule, man, they were cranking out records
And constantly
and
on the
touring.
road touring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and touring. So I think they were getting tired. I think they were getting tired of each other. They were probably starting to get a little bit of little fighting going on, as we talked about, that comes out even more later. Um
And
'Cause
in 1979, pardon me, 1979, Kerry Livgren became born again.
right,
So
right.
he was a big Christian, and he that was reflected in his songwriting. And some of the other guys in the band weren't too thrilled with that direction. Why
Yeah.
do the lyrics have to be so overt? Why are they about God and they just
Yeah, it started
butting
to
of the
fight a little
heads?
bit. Yeah. It's Audio Visions. Is that the one where he kind of starts to, yeah.
Yes,
So because Monolith is what do you think of Monolith? What's your take on that?
I like it. It's a very good record. It's not as good as these two albums.
Right, right.
But what's that song? The Other Side, the first track on Monolith. That's one of my
Really
favorite
good.
Kansas songs.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
People of the Southwind, it has a tiny bit of disco. Everyone did disco.
Yeah,
Styx
exactly.
did it with Why Me from the
Yep.
Cornice record. Just that bass, that beat, boom, 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 like Four
Yep.
on the Floor, which Floyd did with Another Brick in the Wall in
Yeah, 78,
79.
79. Yep. Yep.
Kiss did it, Rod Stewart, everyone did it
Everyone was doing it. Yeah.
to a certain extent. So People of the Southwind has a bit of a disco beat. It's a catchy, upbeat. It's a rock song. It's not really prog.
Hmm.
Now the Other Side, the track that opens the album, that's prog. There's other good songs on it, but it's not my favorite Kansas album.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But
that's when their sales started dropping.
yes.
And then they
Right.
went into the 80s and they were butting heads and there were certain other issues. And then Walsh left and then Steinhardt left, and it was a very different band.
Yeah. Like you said, this is their commercial apex. This is like, every band has their arc, right? And it's like this is for Kansas. It's like up, 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 and then it hits these two albums that's just like top of the heap. And then it, like you said, it starts to
Mhm.
and then the live album, which is really good, but it's like kind of a stopgap, right? And then it's Monolith's kind of like it kind of starts going like that. And then like you said, it's not only just commercial stuff, but it's like within the band they start having problems. So yeah, so these two albums are just the band at full throttle, firing on all cylinders, and you know, they're just excellent records. There's no question about it. So of course the moment of truth on this episode comes to, okay, when it comes down to if you had to pick between these two, Davey, which one would it be?
I have to go Leftoverture.
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
That's the
Leftovers are
one.
so good. It's like
But
it's
it's not to say Point of No Return is bad. It's a
no,
great album.
it's not, it's not.
It's just it's just slightly less than Leftoverture and then Point of No Return under it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I could, and what's funny is that when I first went into this before I listened, but pre-listening, right, just on memory, I was like, "Oh, Leftoverture is gonna like kill. This is it. Leftoverture is the one." And it's funny because, but the more I listened to Point of No Return, I was like, "Wait a minute. Well, hold on a minute. This is like I forgot how strong this album is." So it kind of was like a revelation for me a little bit. Like, oh yeah, it was closer than I thought, for sure. So, but I still got to go Leftoverture.
So do I.
I can't. I mean, my heart says you got to go Leftoverture, man. You can't. There's no way. But
I agree.
but side one of Point of No Return is like perfect.
Yep. It's faultless. Unfortunately, the second side just doesn't live up to me
Not
and,
quite.
and
Not
to
quite.
you.
Yeah, not quite. Close, but no. So it's like close, and it's not to
Yeah.
say that, like you said, it's not bad. It's just not. It's not Leftoverture. Because I mean, Leftoverture doesn't have a bad moment on it. I mean, it really doesn't. Um, and I think that was they were really Leftoverture. I mean, I think even the band was saying like there was magic going on during that album. Like it just was something. Everything was clicking, and like you
Yes.
said, at the last minute, Carrie comes in with, "Hey, I got one more song." It's like it ends up being this massive, awesome song.
Yeah. The biggest song.
Yeah, yeah,
They just captured lightning in a bottle, as the cliche goes, for this record, for Leftoverture.
yeah. Yeah, and Phil said he was. I was going to mention because you had brought up the story that Phil said he was breaking his drums down. Apparently, he said we were done. We were like, the album was recorded. We were done. And Carrie's like, hold on, hold on, I got one more song. And he said it almost wrote itself. He said from what I understand, it was like an easy song to write, which is crazy, thinking how complex it is.
Well,
So
he may have taken a little bit from Journey.
yeah, there may have been a little bit of, because he's like, oh, it's like writing itself. It's like, well, maybe it's some song you had heard from Journey.
It's in your head already, possibly. I don't
It's
know.
possible. It's possible.
But listen to that Journey song, I'm Gonna Leave You, and tell me there's not a glaring similarity to Carry On Wayward Son, because it's there.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. I don't know that song at all, so I'll check that out.
And it's a good song. Great playing by Neil Schon on that song.
Yeah. It's almost like what is it? The Stairway to Heaven and the Spirit song? What is it?
Nature's Way.
Nature's Way, or whatever it
Sounds
is.
a little like Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, yeah. And
No, it's Taurus.
No,
I'm sorry, it's Taurus. It's
Yeah.
Taurus,
Yes.
not Nature's Way.
Right.
Nature's Way is probably the biggest song. It's the other song, Taurus. That's it.
Right. Yeah, Nature's Way was the hit, right? But yeah, it's apparently they played together, they toured together, something, and they're like, oh, Jimmy Page heard that. He heard that song. I'm telling you. It's interesting. But and Led Zeppelin was known for theft, right? They were known,
especially with the old blues songs.
exactly. It's like, wait a minute, how is that Plant and Page? That's an old blues song. What are you talking about?
And they got sued so many times. Eventually, they had to put credits on the record from I think the '90s on, giving credit to the old blues artists.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think that did come down eventually. Finally, they had to pay or something. But
it says Plant Page and Lead Belly, Plant Page and Big Mama Thornton, whoever. Can't remember the blues artists all off the top of my head.
They're putting their names on them. They're putting their names on the credits. Yeah.
Because the estate sued Zeppelin.
Yeah. Yeah. Which rightly so. I mean, it's funny because when I was younger, I didn't understand that those were all old blues songs. It wasn't a blues.
Same here.
I wasn't a blues aficionado, so I didn't know that those were all, Shake It On Down and all that stuff was, wait a minute, that's an old blues song.
And then you could say in the '80s, the hip hop artists started doing it. The rappers started taking stuff from older records.
Right.
And there were lawsuits. And then I think Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique in 1989, 1990, that I think was the first rap album, hip hop album, that had the credits of where they took their samples from. It was all the sampling,
right,
that the turntable guys were doing, and then they had to give credits on all the records from there on.
Yeah, yeah, and there's like a million samples on Paul's Boutique.
Oh yeah,
like a million. Yeah. So, but man, we are pretty far off of Kansas right now. But that's what we do on this channel. We talk music, and you never know where it's gonna go, right?
Yeah. Just like our buddy Grant, we go off on tangents.
Exactly. That's what Grant does it too, and it's fun. I mean, it's like you go from any kind of music geeks like us. It's like we're talking American Prog. Next thing you know, we're talking Beastie Boys' second album. So, but anyway.
And you know what I'm going to do eventually down the line on my channel, Cretin Classics. I have my own channel on YouTube. I plan to do an album ranking of Beastie Boys.
Oh, there you go. Nice. I'll be tuning into that one. I love the Beastie Boys. So,
and I just did a Kansas album ranking on my channel recently. So you sort of know what my top two are. My number 3 is a big surprise. So if you want to check it out on Cretin Classics, I rank the studio albums, the 15 studio albums of Kansas. And my number 3 is a big surprise. That's a big contrarian view from a channel you're on.
That's right.
My number 3 shocked because I was on another channel. I did a ranking last year, and my number 3 shocked the guys. They had it at the bottom of their list. So everyone hears things differently.
Yeah, they're like, what? Number 3? What?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, and absolutely check out Davey's channel, Cretin Classics. It's great. He does, I mean, he does tons of stuff, and he's very knowledgeable. So check it out. You'll enjoy it for sure.
And I just want to give you a shout out because you just appeared the other day on a channel I was invited to be on. I unfortunately couldn't make it because of my work schedule. But Scott Lade, he has a channel called the Prog Corner. And Tom was on this past Sunday's live stream episode where they listed their top 10 Marillion songs, and it's a great episode.
Yeah, it was fun.
So,
it was
yeah,
fun.
you did a good job there.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was
Yeah, it
great.
was
It was
fun
fun.
to watch.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm a big Marillion guy. It's like grew up on them. I mean, I loved them in high school, so it's like, it's like your first love, but again, because and like I said on there, I'm such a Genesis guy. When I heard there was a Genesis for the '80s, I was like, what? Genesis for the '80s? I'm all in, man. So I was all excited about them.
And
Uh,
I heard Kaylee on the radio, and just that song floored me. I said, "Who the heck is that? What's a Marillion?" I
it's
had no idea, and I went out and bought the record and fell in love with the record and the band. And I've been a fan since '85, so almost 40 years now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing a picture of Fish with the painted face, and I was like, oh man. And it's obviously he's a huge Gabriel guy, right? So it's like,
Yep.
I'm like, oh man, I love that. I mean, I love it. But anyway, but thank you for the shout out, and yeah, and definitely check out Davey's channel for sure. I would say that we've covered these albums in detail, and I hope you, if you're not familiar with Kansas and these records, for sure. I mean, there's no question you got to check them out. But and just check out Kansas generally. They're a great band. I mean, it's a whole are they prog or are they not?
They're
But
prog.
I would say they're pretty proggy to me. So, and I mean, just the arrangements alone, so complex and so tight. So thanks again for joining us this evening or today or whatever, whenever you're watching this morning. Every time I say tonight, it's like they could be watching it anytime. So,
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you got something out of it, and definitely like and subscribe, please, to the channel. It helps the channel, and go check out Davey's channel, Cretan Classics, as well. So, thanks again, Davey, and
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time on Curless Mania.
Bye bye.